Perhaps we should continue this conversation indoors, Elena suggested as the rain began to fall more heavily. She gestured toward the specially constructed welcome facility behind her, designed with input from years of xenobiological speculation and the limited data they had received during initial communications. The Ilori hesitated visibly, their willowy forms trembling slightly as thunder rumbled again in the distance. Their translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that Elena guessed might indicate distress. "Our environmental shields are sufficient," Zerthal stated, though the diplomat's voice translation carried undertones of uncertainty. "Lead the way, Ambassador Rodriguez." Elena nodded and turned toward the facility, walking slowly to accommodate the aliens' labored movements. The Ilori moved with careful, deliberate steps, their bodies clearly straining against Earth's gravity. What would have been an elegant procession on their homeworld had become an awkward shuffle. Inside the welcome facility, the aliens visibly relaxed as the doors sealed behind them, though they remained clustered together, environmental suits humming with activity as they filtered the air before allowing it into their breathing apparatus. "We have prepared a chamber with reduced gravity and customized atmospheric conditions based on the specifications you provided," Elena explained, gesturing toward a doorway emblazoned with symbols from the Ilori language. "Perhaps you would be more comfortable there." "Most considerate," Zerthal replied, genuine gratitude evident in the translator's rendition. "Your world's conditions are more extreme than our simulations prepared us for." As the delegation moved toward the specialized chamber, one of the junior Ilori diplomats paused by a display case containing Earth butterfly specimens. The alien leaned in, fascination overcoming caution, when a live monarch butterfly, part of the biodome environment within the facility, fluttered down and landed directly on the diplomat's suit. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The Ilori let out a high-pitched sound that the translators couldn't process, flailing backward and collapsing to the floor. Warning lights flashed across their environmental suit as two others rushed to assist. "Containment breach. Biological contaminant," one of them shouted through the translator. Elena rushed forward, hands raised in a calming gesture. "It's harmless. Just a butterfly. A completely harmless insect." Dr. Chen carefully approached, gently capturing the butterfly in a specimen container. "See, it's simply a lepidopteran, a flying insect that pollinates flowers. It has no venom, no teeth, nothing that could penetrate your suits." The fallen diplomat was helped to their feet, still trembling, as Zerthal studied the captured butterfly with a mixture of apprehension and wonder. "On our world," Zerthal explained, "flying creatures of this size were predatory in our evolutionary past. We have instinctual responses, and you say this is harmless." "Completely," Elena confirmed. "Children often chase them in gardens for amusement." The Ilori exchanged glances, their skin flickering with rapid patterns of communication that the human translators were still learning to interpret. "Ambassador Rodriguez," Zerthal finally said, "I believe we have much to learn about each other. Your definition of harmless and hospitable differs significantly from galactic standards." Elena smiled diplomatically. "Perhaps that's why this exchange is so important. What seems ordinary to us may be extraordinary to you, and vice versa." "Indeed," Zerthal agreed, watching the butterfly with newfound curiosity. "Though I must inform you that our preliminary reports to the consortium will need to emphasize caution. Most galactic species would find your world terrifying." "Terrifying." Elena couldn't help but laugh slightly. "We haven't even shown you our oceans yet." The sudden stiffening of every Ilori in the room suggested that perhaps that revelation could wait for another day. The morning dawned clear and mild, perfect weather for the carefully planned Earth introduction Elena had arranged. At a comfortable 72 degrees Fahrenheit with minimal wind, it represented what humans considered ideal conditions. The Ilori, however, emerged from their quarters looking apprehensive, their environmental suits upgraded with additional layers of protection after yesterday's butterfly incident. "We appreciate your consideration in selecting a less aggressive climate pattern for today's excursion. Zerval said, the translator conveying something between gratitude and resignation. Elena smiled reassuringly. We've chosen one of our most peaceful natural reserves. The path is well maintained, and Dr. Chen has confirmed there are no dangerous predators active in the area. The small convoy of specially designed low-gravity vehicles transported the delegation to Mendocino Woodlands, where ancient redwoods towered above a carefully maintained trail. The Ilori fell silent as they exited their vehicles, necks craning upward at the massive trees. These organisms are permitted to grow to such size. One of the Ilori scientists asked. They do not threaten your settlements. Dr. Chen laughed gently. Quite the opposite. We protect these trees. Some are over 1,000 years old. You protect potentially destructive megaflora, the alien repeated, clearly struggling with the concept. Fascinating adaptation strategy. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the Ilori moved with increasing confidence, their suits adjusting continuously to the changing conditions. The delegation paused at a small stream where a human family was picnicking nearby. 2 children splashed in the shallow water, shrieking with delight as they chased minnows with small nets. Your young enter natural water sources, Zerfal asked, genuine curiosity overcoming apprehension. Without sterilization or protective gear. Children love playing in streams and lakes, Alina explained. It's a normal part of childhood for many Earth cultures. The Ilori watched in fascination as one child slipped on a wet rock, fell knee-deep into the water, laughed, and continued playing. The alien skin pulsed with rapid patterns at the sight. On our world, Zerthal explained, natural water sources were breeding grounds for parasites before we engineered them for safety. A child would need immediate medical attention after such exposure. Earth children get scrapes, bruises, and occasional mild illnesses, Dr. Chen said. It actually helps develop their immune systems. You allow controlled harm to strengthen biological defenses, the Ilori scientist observed. Deliberate microtrauma as evolutionary advantage. Our approach evolved differently. We eliminated environmental threats instead of adapting to them. As they continued walking, they reached a small meadow where a rock climbing class was underway. Humans of various ages scaled a sheer rock face, secured by ropes and harnesses. The Ilori watched in stunned silence. This is recreation, Zerthal finally asked. Rock climbing is quite popular, Alina confirmed. It builds strength, problem-solving skills, and confidence. Your species intentionally creates survival challenges when none exist, the alien observed. You simulate environmental threats for enjoyment. Alina hadn't considered it that way before. I suppose we do. When survival isn't constantly at stake, we create controlled challenges to test ourselves. The Ilori diplomat's translator was silent for a long moment before Zerifal spoke again. Ambassador, I believe we are beginning to understand why the consortium has observed your world for so long without contact. Your species doesn't merely survive your Deathworld. You embrace its hazards as opportunity. This makes you uniquely unpredictable. Is unpredictability dangerous in galactic society? Elena asked. Not necessarily dangerous, Zerthal replied carefully, but certainly unprecedented. 3 weeks into the diplomatic mission, Elena was reviewing cultural exchange protocols in her office when the floor beneath her trembled. Coffee sloshed in her mug, a minor tremor, barely registering 3.2 on the Richter scale. For San Francisco residents, it was so routine most would hardly pause their conversations. For the Ilori delegation, however, it was anything but routine. The emergency alert system in Elena's office activated immediately. On the display, she watched as the Ilori quarters erupted into chaos. Aliens rushed in seemingly random directions, environmental suits flashing with warning patterns. Several had collapsed entirely, while others were engaging emergency protocols on what appeared to be personal shield devices. Ambassador Rodriguez to Ilori quarters, immediately, She commanded the facility's AI as she rushed out the door. By the time Elena arrived, Dr. Chen was already there, attempting to calm the delegation. Zerthal stood in the center of the room, uncharacteristically still while chaos swirled around them. "The planet is breaking," one of the junior diplomats wailed through their translator. "Structural integrity failure imminent." "It's just a minor earthquake," Elena explained, keeping her voice deliberately calm. "They happen frequently here. The building is designed to absorb the movement safely." "You anticipated the planetary crust fracturing?" Zerthal asked, somehow maintaining diplomatic composure despite clear distress signals pulsing across their skin. "Of course. California experiences hundreds of small tremors yearly," Dr. Chen explained. "All our structures are engineered to withstand much stronger quakes than this." Just as the tremor subsided completely, the facility's warning system activated again, this time for an actual emergency. A small apartment building 6 blocks away had reported a partial wall collapse and possible gas leak. "Ambassador, your presence is requested at the Emergency Response Coordination Center," the facility AI announced. "Please excuse me," Elena said to the still shaken aliens. "I need to assist with the response effort." "You're going toward the destruction?" Zerthal asked, translator struggling to convey the mixture of horror and confusion. "Some people might need help," Elena replied simply. To her surprise, Zerthal straightened to full height. "I will accompany you." As diplomatic observer. At the coordination center, the Ilori diplomat watched in stunned silence as humans mobilized with practiced efficiency. First responders rushed toward the affected building while engineers quickly assessed structural integrity. Medical teams prepared for potential injuries, and neighboring buildings were evacuated as a precaution. "Your species moves toward danger," Zerthal observed quietly. "We help each other," Elena explained, echoing her earlier words, but now demonstrated in action. Hours later, with the situation stabilized and fortunately no serious injuries reported, Zerthal stood with Elena watching the cleanup efforts. "In our evolutionary history," the alien finally said, "environmental threats led our ancestors to develop technology that would prevent such occurrences. We engineered harmonic stabilizers for our tectonic plates 7,000 years ago. Earth is too large, too geologically active for such solutions," Elena explained. "We adapted differently." "Yes," Zerthal agreed. "Rather than controlling your environment, you built social structures that respond to crisis. Individual risk for collective benefit." The alien's translator paused, searching for the right words. "It is admirable, if terrifyingly inefficient." That evening, unknown to Elena, Zerthal composed a special report to the Galactic Consortium. The encrypted message contained extensive observational data on human emergency response patterns and concluded with a simple assessment. Deathworld adaptation strategy previously unclassified in cinesociological records. Humans appear to have evolved crisis-specific altruism as survival mechanism. Implications for galactic interaction protocols require immediate review. Elena stared at the holographic display, momentarily speechless. The quantum communication device, a temporary gift from the consortium, showed a vast chamber filled with alien beings of startlingly diverse morphologies. Some resembled the willowy Ilori, while others were utterly unlike anything Earth's xenobiologists had imagined. What united them was their focus. All eyes, sensory organs, or perceptual apparatuses were trained on her. "Ambassador Rodriguez," a melodious voice translated into her earpiece. "The Grand Council acknowledges your presence. You may address the assembly." Elena straightened her posture, grateful for the diplomatic training that kept her voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Consortium," she began, "I come before you as a representative of Earth and humanity. We are grateful for this opportunity to join the interstellar community and hope to contribute positively to galactic civilization." A low murmur of translated conversations rippled through the assembly. A being with iridescent tentacles that seemed to function as both limbs and sensory organs moved forward. Ambassador, I am Elder Nix of the Science Directorate. The being introduced itself. Your species presents us with a fascinating anomaly. Preliminary data suggests humans possess physical and psychological adaptations that most consortium species only achieve through millennia of technological augmentation. Images appeared in the holographic display. Humans climbing mountains, diving into oceans, running marathons, giving birth, recovering from injuries, and adapting to extreme environments from deserts to the Arctic. These activities, Elder Nix continued, would be impossible for 97% of consortium species without extensive technological support. Yet you perform them with your baseline biology. Another representative moved forward, a being with a crystalline exoskeleton that fractured and reformed as it moved. This is precisely what concerns the Security Council, this new voice announced. The consortium has documented 17 previous encounters with species from high-gravity, high-variability worlds. 15 of those encounters resulted in conflict when those species gained access to advanced technology. Alina felt the diplomatic ground shifting beneath her feet. Humanity has no hostile intentions. Intentions evolve. The crystalline being interrupted. What concerns us is capacity. Your species evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most of us instantly. You recover from injuries that would be fatal to consortium citizens. You adapt to environmental extremes that would require generations of technological development for us to endure. The chamber fell silent as a third figure approached, a being so ancient its species was not immediately identifiable, supported by a floating chair of obvious technological sophistication. Ambassador Rodriguez, this elder spoke, its voice carrying surprising warmth. What my colleagues are attempting to articulate is that your species represents both extraordinary potential and unprecedented uncertainty. You are predators who developed empathy, survivors who created art, competitors who built cooperation. These are rare combinations in our experience. Alina considered her words carefully. On Earth, we have a saying, judge by actions, not capabilities. We ask to be evaluated by what we do, not what we might theoretically become. The ancient being nodded, or made a movement Alina interpreted as agreement, a reasonable request. But understand that your actions already speak volumes. Your response to environmental catastrophe, as documented by Ambassador Zurithal, reveals a species that has turned adversity into strength through collective action. Images appeared of the earthquake response Zurithal had witnessed, alongside footage of other human disaster responses from the historical records the Ilori had accessed. This capacity, the elder continued, to rush toward danger rather than away from it, to prioritize the collective over individual survival. This is what truly distinguishes your species, and it is why the consortium must decide whether humanity represents our greatest hope or our greatest challenge. As the transmission ended, Alina realized that Earth's future now depended on how the galaxy interpreted humanity's fundamental nature, not just what we could do, but why we did it. The sleek obsidian vessel that entered Earth's orbit bore little resemblance to the Ilori diplomatic ship, where the Ilori craft had been elegant and clearly designed for scientific exploration. This new arrival bristled with what even untrained human eyes could recognize as weapon systems. Its hull absorbed radar and light in equal measure, creating an ominous silhouette against Earth's blue backdrop. Regulatory fleet vessel Infinite Prudence requesting immediate audience with Earth's governing authority. The transmission announced in perfect English, bypassing the usual translation protocols. Alina stood in the newly established Galactic Affairs Center, surrounded by representatives from Earth's most powerful nations. The atmosphere was tense, military advisors whispering urgently about defense capabilities, diplomats arguing over response strategies. Ambassador Rodriguez, the UN Secretary-General, addressed her. As our most experienced diplomat in extraterrestrial contact, what do you recommend? Alina considered carefully. We should meet them, but not from a position of weakness. I suggest we hold the meeting here, on Earth, not on their vessel. The transmission was sent, and to everyone's surprise, accepted without hesitation. Commander Vex of the regulatory fleet made an immediate impression upon arrival. Unlike the physically fragile Ilori, Vex's species appeared to have evolved in a slightly higher gravity environment. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with a dense exoskeleton and 4 upper limbs, the commander moved with precision that suggested both military training and natural predatory instinct. Ambassador Rodriguez, Vex acknowledged with a slight incline of their head. "I have been authorized by the Consortium's Regulatory Council to inform you of our decision regarding Earth's developmental status." Alina maintained her diplomatic composure. "We were unaware that such a decision was being considered, Commander. Earth has not yet been formally invited to join the Consortium." "Precisely," Vex replied, mandibles clicking in what the humans would later learn was a gesture of satisfaction. "And until certain safeguards are established, such an invitation will not be forthcoming. Earth has been classified as a developmental risk zone." The human delegation erupted in protests, but Alina raised a hand for silence. "What exactly does this classification entail?" "For the safety of all species," Vex explained with practiced neutrality, "Earth will be placed under developmental quarantine. Technology transfer will be restricted to non-critical areas. Space exploration beyond your solar system will require consortium oversight. This is not negotiable. And if we reject these terms," a military advisor challenged. Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Then contact will be severed completely. The consortium has encountered species like yours before, evolved for survival in extreme conditions, aggressive problem solvers with hierarchical social structures. Without proper oversight, such species inevitably become destabilizing forces." Alina felt a presence beside her and turned to see Zerthal, who had been observing silently. The Ilori diplomat stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Commander Vex," Zerthal's translator conveyed, "the Ilori consensus disputes the Regulatory Council's assessment. We have spent significant time observing humans in their natural environment. Their adaptability stems not from aggression, but from cooperative resilience." Vex's exoskeleton bristled slightly. The Ilori would naturally sympathize with another species that prioritizes collective harmony. However, the Council's decision stands. "Then perhaps," Alina suggested, drawing on a sudden inspiration, "we should put humanity to the test. If your concern is how we might utilize advanced technology, allow us to demonstrate our approach to problem-solving and cooperation." Vex hesitated, mandibles clicking rapidly in what might have been calculation or communication with superiors. "What sort of demonstration do you propose?" "A series of challenges," Alina replied, improvising but speaking with confidence. "Designed by the consortium to test not just our capabilities, but our ethical framework and cooperative instincts." "Interesting," Vex admitted. "The Regulatory Council does have provisions for developmental assessment protocols." "Then let Earth prove itself," Alina pressed, "not through theory or prediction, but through demonstration." Behind her, the human delegation exchanged nervous glances. They had no idea what such challenges might entail, but they understood the alternative was unacceptable. "This is impossible," Dr. Ramesh Kapoor muttered, examining the specifications for the 3rd challenge. "They've designed a test that contradicts basic laws of thermodynamics." The international team of scientists and engineers gathered in the hastily assembled Challenge Response Center were facing their greatest test yet. The first 2 challenges set by the consortium had been demanding but ultimately manageable. The team had successfully demonstrated human adaptability in extreme environments and solved complex logistics problems with limited resources. This 3rd challenge, however, seemed deliberately designed to be unsolvable. "They want us to create a self-sustaining energy transfer system with 70% efficiency using only materials from this approved list," Dr. Chen explained to Alina, who had just arrived from another diplomatic meeting. "The physics simply don't work." Alina studied the faces of the team, exhausted after days of continuous work, but still determined. "What if they're not testing whether we can solve it, but how we approach an impossible problem. The scientists exchanged glances. "You think it's a deliberate no-win scenario?" asked Dr. Kapoor. "Commander Vex doesn't expect us to succeed," Elena replied. "The question is, how do we fail in a way that proves our worth?" From the corner of the room, Zerthal, who had been permitted to observe the challenges, spoke up. "In my species' history, we faced similar resource limitations. When we could not solve a problem directly, we redesigned our needs to eliminate the problem." The comment sparked a flurry of new ideas. If they couldn't build the system as specified, perhaps they could demonstrate why the specifications themselves were flawed and propose an alternative approach. Working through the night, the team developed a radical solution. Instead of fighting against the laws of physics, they embraced them, creating a system that achieved only 40% efficiency, but incorporated a revolutionary feedback mechanism that improved performance over time through machine learning. When they presented their solution to the consortium observers, Commander Vex was dismissive. "You have failed to meet the specifications. This demonstrates the limitations of your species' problem-solving capabilities." "With respect, Commander," Elena countered, "we recognize that the specifications were impossible to meet. Rather than waste resources pursuing an unattainable goal, we developed a sustainable alternative that acknowledges physical limitations while maximizing potential." Before Vex could respond, a message arrived from the Consortium Council. The final challenge was being modified without explanation. The new parameters were delivered the next morning, and the human team immediately recognized the trap. The challenge now required them to develop a defense system, ostensibly to protect a colony from environmental threats, but the technology could easily be weaponized. "This is a test of ethics, not engineering," Elena realized. "They want to see if we'll build a weapon when given the opportunity." The team worked feverishly on their solution, knowing the stakes had never been higher. When observers from the regulatory fleet subtly introduced a malfunction that put the test facility at risk, the human team didn't hesitate. They immediately abandoned their work on the challenge and focused entirely on containing the emergency, working seamlessly with the Elori observers to prevent a catastrophic system failure. As the crisis was brought under control, Elena noticed Commander Vex watching with an unreadable expression. "You compromised your challenge solution to address an unexpected threat," Vex noted. "This was inefficient. We prioritized safety over competition," Elena replied simply. "That's not inefficiency, it's humanity." For the first time, Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been thoughtful consideration rather than dismissal. "Perhaps," the commander admitted, "the Regulatory Council's assessment models require adjustment." The celebration following Earth's successful completion of the challenges was cut short by blaring alarms. Holographic displays throughout the facility flickered to life, showing a massive vessel emerging from what appeared to be a fold in space itself. Its design was unlike anything the consortium representatives had seen before, a nightmarish amalgamation of biological and mechanical components that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. "Void Hunter vessel detected," announced the consortium emergency system. "All diplomatic personnel evacuate immediately. Regulatory fleet prepare for defensive measures." Commander Vex's normally impassive exoskeleton paled visibly. "This is impossible. The Void Hunters were eradicated centuries ago." "Clearly not," Elena replied, keeping her voice steady despite the panic erupting around them. "Who are they?" Zerethal moved closer, trembling slightly. "According to our historical records, they evolved on a world even harsher than Earth, a planet with toxic atmosphere, extreme radiation, and predatory ecology. They embraced their environment's brutality, incorporating it into their technology and philosophy. The main communication system crackled to life with a transmission from the alien vessel. The being that appeared on screen bore some resemblance to Commander Vex's species, but twisted and enhanced with biotechnological modifications. Where Vex had 4 arms, this being had 6, some fully mechanical, others a disturbing blend of flesh and technology. "Attention, soft world weaklings," the being announced. voice rasping through the translator. I am Executor Krav of the Void Hunter Dominion. Our long exile in the galactic void has ended. We have returned to cleanse the galaxy of evolutionary regression. Outside, the regulatory fleet vessels moved to intercept the Void Hunter ship. Their weapons, impressive to human observers mere days ago, seemed to have minimal effect on the massive vessel's defenses. We evolved in the crucible of true hardship, Krav continued, seemingly amused by the regulatory fleet's attempts. While you engineered comfort and safety, we perfected adaptation to the harshest conditions imaginable. Now we return to claim our rightful place. One by one, the consortium ships went silent, disabled by technology that seemed centuries beyond their own. Within minutes, Earth was effectively cut off from the rest of the galaxy, the orbiting alien vessels rendered inoperable. We will begin with this world, Krav announced. Our scouts reported harbor's potential. Unlike you degenerates, these humans understand struggle. They will serve as an instructive example of our power before we move against the consortium core worlds. The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence in its wake. They're going to attack Earth to make a point, Elena realized aloud, and we have no way to contact the consortium for help. Zirathal's translator struggled to convey the complex emotions in the alien's voice. The Void Hunters view themselves as the ultimate expression of Deathworld evolution, embracing brutality rather than cooperation. They see other advanced species as evolutionarily degenerate for engineering away hardship rather than adapting to it. Commander Vex, still processing the loss of the regulatory fleet, turned to Elena with an uncharacteristic uncertainty. Our defenses were inadequate. The Void Hunters have clearly continued technological advancement during their exile, incorporating biological adaptations we abandoned millennia ago. Then we need a different approach, Elena insisted, not just technology, but strategy. What do you propose? Vex asked, mandibles clicking rapidly in what humans now recognized as stress. The Void Hunters evolved on a world that makes Earth look hospitable. Their biological and technological adaptations are specifically designed for warfare in extreme conditions. Elena looked around at the assembled representatives, human scientists and leaders alongside aliens who had, until recently, viewed Earth as dangerously primitive. A plan began to form in her mind. Then we'll fight them on our terms, she said firmly. In the environments they think make them superior. On Deathworld Earth. This plan is insanity, Commander Vex protested, mandibles clicking in agitation. You propose to deliberately lure the Void Hunters to Earth's most dangerous environments. Precisely, Elena confirmed, standing before the hastily assembled War Council of humans and aliens. They believe their evolution on an extreme world makes them superior. We need to show them that surviving a harsh environment and mastering it are two different things. In the 3 days since the Void Hunters' arrival, their massive ship had maintained orbit, deploying smaller vessels to scan Earth's surface. Intercepted communications suggested they were identifying optimal landing zones for what they called a demonstration of dominance. The Void Hunters have technological superiority, Dr. Chen explained, but they still think like apex predators. They want to establish dominance through direct confrontation. We can use that psychology against them. Zirathal, who had been studying human military history with growing fascination, added, humans have a concept called asymmetric warfare. Fighting indirectly, using environment and psychology rather than matching force against force. What followed was unprecedented. A crash course in survival and adaptation as mixed teams of humans and aliens prepared for Earth's defense. Human experts in desert survival, Arctic exploration, deep sea diving, and jungle warfare shared their knowledge with consortium species who had never experienced such environments without technological shields. Commander Vex, despite initial skepticism, proved to be a quick study. Your species uses environmental knowledge as a force multiplier, the commander observed during jungle training. This is not in our tactical databases, because it's not something we engineered, a human special forces instructor explained. It's something we learn through thousands of years of living in these environments. When the Void Hunters finally landed, they deployed in force to multiple locations around the globe, exactly as Elena had predicted. Their strategy was clearly designed to demonstrate simultaneous dominance across diverse environments. What they found instead were prepared defenders who understood Earth's dangers intimately. In the Amazon rainforest, human-guided teams used the dense canopy and unpredictable terrain to isolate and neutralize Void Hunter units. In the Sahara, knowledge of hidden water sources and desert navigation allowed defenders to outblast enemies whose environmental suits failed against unexpected sandstorms. The decisive confrontation came in the northern Pacific, where Void Hunters attempted to establish an ocean floor base. They found themselves facing dive teams composed of humans and specially trained aliens, using relatively simple technology, but superior environmental knowledge. Executor Krav, monitoring these unexpected defeats from orbit, finally descended personally to the Joint Command Center with an elite guard. Their arrival was preceded by weapons fire that disabled the facility's exterior defenses. Impressive adaptation, Krav acknowledged as they confronted Elena and the Allied commanders, but ultimately futile. We evolved to dominate through superior force, not clever tricks. That's where you're wrong, Elena replied calmly. Evolution isn't about domination. It's about fitting successfully into an ecosystem. At her signal, the facility's systems executed a carefully planned protocol. Not an attack on the Void Hunters, but an environmental shift. The atmospheric controls recalibrated to Earth normal humidity, pressure, and composition. The effect on the Void Hunters was immediate and dramatic. Their biotechnological enhancements, designed for performance in extreme conditions, began to malfunction in Earth's comparatively mild environment. The true lesson of Deathworld evolution, Elena explained as consortium security forces moved in to contain the suddenly struggling invaders, isn't developing the strength to overcome extremes. It's developing the adaptability to thrive in any condition. Humans didn't master Earth by becoming the strongest. We succeeded by becoming the most flexible. As the crisis subsided, Zerfal approached Elena with a formal communication from the Consortium Council. Earth's status has been reconsidered, the Ilori announced. The Council proposes a new classification, Adaptive Nexus World, with immediate invitation to full Consortium membership. Commander Vex, who had fought alongside humans against the common threat, added, the regulatory fleet also formally requests permission to establish an adaptive strategy academy on Earth. It seems we have much to learn from Deathworlders after all.